Let's tell you about the latest coming out of other parts of KwaZulu-Natal. We stay in that province and we touch base with Newzroom Afrika's Karinda Jagmohan, who's been following the province's officials led by Premier Sihle Zikalala. And Karinda, as Dumaula has been showing us images from some informal settlements in Durban, people who were previously affected by the floods in April were not moved, and now the recent bout of floods also impacting them, a double whammy, if you will. What have officials told you about the relocation of people? Yes, some have been housed in shelters. What about those they have not been able to reach?
Indeed. Well, there have been a government delegation going around parts of the eThekwini Metro. Earlier on, we were just north of Durban in Umdloti, where there was an oversight visit at the buildings affected there. Now we are south of Durban in the Bluff, where my colleague Spongiseni Ngubane will show you the soil that has come down after torrential rain washed down soil that was high on a riverbank and essentially damaged this house that was built in the 1960s by the parents of Lisa. She's here with her husband, Dave. Thank you so much for speaking to us. But, you know, you tell us earlier that there was also a situation of non-compliance by your neighbors where they moved soil here. Perhaps first you can just start with the damage that you're seeing in this house and how it's also affecting you personally.
Well, we saw damage start about 8 weeks ago. It wasn't merely the sort of most recent floods. Essentially, what the situation we find ourselves in is we've got my father-in-law's home, which he built, that's been standing here for approximately 60 years. This house has survived Cyclone Demoina and some other serious heavy rains, but it's pointed to the reality of someone doing construction works above us, possibly unsupervised or unapproved, and this just their lack of attention to safety, sort of standard safety measures, to ensure that they don't cause damage to another property. So essentially what's happened is the construction works plus the rain has caused essentially a landslide at the back of our property, and it started coming very slowly about 8 weeks ago, and we alerted all the necessary authorities as to the situation at hand, and also the neighbour in question. But there just hasn't been any effective action to try and remedy the situation. So what's happened is, with the April 11th rains, as well as the ones that we saw last weekend, the situation has now got to a critical point. And we're suffering with major erosion around the house, exposure of foundations. It's costing us money to underpin the home. We've had to evict our tenants for safety reasons. And obviously we're dealing with the cleanup process that happens repeatedly until someone can actually bring the neighbour in question to book and force them to implement some kind of sustainable solution.
Perhaps also I can press your brain, you know, on the night of the last weekend's floods, residents of Durban, what did you guys experience and how has this been affecting your local community?
Well, I think for us who have an active live problem, you can't sleep at night basically. I think that you're kind of dreading, also because this is a remote residence, we don't actually live here, you're almost dreading going back after the rain stopped to see the impact of the damage. And also you find yourself powerless really to do anything, because you're essentially at the mercy of the weather and obviously of the actions of other people as well. So
terrible time. Thank you, Lisa and Dave, for sharing your story with us. So this is the house that was damaged here, and we're going to show you those visuals. But I see also the eThekwini Mayor, Nxolisi Kaunda, and we just also want to have a word with him about what has happened so far. He was part of the media briefing this morning, but we're just going to try and doorstop him quickly. Mayor, thank you for speaking to us, Mayor Nxolisi Kaunda. You've been to the north of Durban, to the south now, a devastating time for the city. How has this exacerbated our efforts to already try and recover? How many people are even living now in community shelters, Mayor?
Yes, the number is increasing because there are pockets of areas which were also affected. But in the main is the people from here, from south, the Bluff area, and also the northern part of the city. But we are responding to the challenges of infrastructure. We are happy to report that we have reinstated electricity to many areas which were affected during the weekend. and most of those people are now accessing power. With the incident here in the family, we are going to be enforcing our building regulations, because whenever we grant permission for all these buildings to be constructed, there are conditions in which should be taken into cognizance whenever the development is taking place. So the damages that are there will need to be stopped with immediate effect. There must be some remedial measures put to protect the neighboring households, to ensure that their properties are also safe. But as a city, yes, it's a double blow. Looking at the April and now during the weekend, even the remedial interventions which we have put in place have been washed away. So we are working flat out and working hard to reinstate and restore services to our communities. So we are confident that people will start receiving services wherever they've been affected.
In terms of those who have been left homeless, have you received reports that people are receiving temporary shelter? Anything you're concerned about? Any message for people to come on board and assist once again?
Yes, we are working with NGOs, businesses, and many other stakeholders to support. Even churches, they've made their own churches available to accommodate people. That is highly commendable, because we appreciate the interventions, because government alone cannot be in a position to deal with all this situation. But we encourage our businesses, NGOs, CPOs to come on board. So we are happy with their interventions in many places when they've been intervening, whether bringing food parcels, clothing, and many other facilities that they've been bringing on board.
And may I just quickly in one line, as a leader, are you concerned about this happening even again for a third time?
Yes, we are more than concerned. Remember, these are natural disasters. They are beyond our control. And even our infrastructure, in the areas where we come from, you know, the infrastructure is properly done there. But the challenge is that the magnitude of these floods, looking at the rainfalls that we have received, they haven't been seen for more than 100 years. So it shows that even if your infrastructure was in proper condition, they would have coped to deal with the situation. But we are soldiering on, because people of eThekwini are resilient. People of eThekwini, businesses are being reopened in many areas. People are at work. It shows that we are going to work together with everybody to go back to normalcy.
Thank you very much, Mayor Olisi Kaunda of the eThekwini Metro, saying that he is extremely concerned about this happening again, looking at the magnitude of what happened. Over 200 millimeters of rain just falling overnight this weekend, devastating parts of the city.
Karinda Jagmohan and Dumaule Mohlaudi, both in Durban, for us, bringing us the same side of two sides rather of the same coin. From informal settlements to more affluent areas, the rains did not choose. Devastation around in that province. Will continue to reflect on that story throughout the course of the coming days and today, of course.